Hello, I'm just going to have a quick walkthrough of how we set up our development environment on the Windows platform, in this case, Windows 11. We're going to download Python, install it, and then we're going to download something called PyCharm, which is an integrated development environment. So what this means is that we can either write our code in an editor, any kind of editor, but it is generally better to use something like JetBrains PyCharm or Visual Studio Code or something similar that actually helps us with our development activities. So what we're going to do is, I'm just going to move this out of the way, I'll need it later on, is we'll start with the web browser, and then we go to python.org. And what we want to do is, let's maximize that, go to download, and I want to download Python 3.10.2. It starts doing that. Now it recognizes the fact that I'm running this in a certain environment, so I'll click open file. Very simple. I want to install launcher for all users. Don't have to. I do want to add Python 3.10 to the path, and I want to install now. It says, do you want to make changes? Yes, I do. And we'll let that then finish. So what we're doing now is we're installing our Python programming language, the interpreter. In other words, the commands that we write when we type our code, our programming logic, is interpreted by Python into something that the computer understands, which is basically a series of ones and zeros. Do I want to disable path length limit? Yes, I do. And yes, I will accept that. And then that was successful, close. So we've installed Python. Next, we want to install the JetBrains PyCharm. Sorry, it wants me to do something. JetBrains PyCharm Community Edition. Now, this is just an integrated development environment. What does that mean? It means it has a number of features and functions that we can use to make our development environment a lot easier, or programming. But I don't want the professional version. I really want the community edition. So I want to make sure that that's the version that we get. Python IDE, PyCharm. I don't want that one. Sorry, I just want to make sure that I don't get the professional one because that's there. Community. That's the edition I want. Now, there's nothing wrong getting professional. It's just the professional that we have to pay for, and we can run it as a trial for a number of weeks, and it's really good. However, for our intents and purposes, the community edition is fine. So let's download that. As we can see, it's doing that in the background. I'm just going to have another swig of coffee. So once we set this up now, the environment, we can use it to develop any kind of application, in this case in Python. Now there are, for example, JetBrains has a number of integrated development environments covering a large number of programming languages, Python being one of them. We can use Visual Studio Code from Microsoft, which is similar, and also has support for a wide range of different programming languages. But I'm going with this one because it has certain features that just makes my life a little easier. So there we go, open file to install it. And yes, I want to make change to this device. Welcome to PyCharm Community Edition setup. Next. That is fine. Next, I want the Community Edition, add bin, add folders project, and create association. So basically, I want a shortcut on my desktop. Don't have to. I want to add the bin path, but I won't restart just yet. I'll do it later on. And then I want the context menu. So when I right click on a file, I won't be able to select open folders project. And I want to associate our Python files to this environment. So when I have created code, save it as a Python file with the ending .py, I can just double click on it and it will open the PyCharm editor for me to edit it. So next. Start menu folder, JetBrains, yes, install. So what we're going to do then is start this up and just kind of have a quick view of what it is and what it does. And for our intents and purposes, so we can get started on the coding. And that's covered in another video where we walk through the application rock, paper, scissors, and how we do that using Python step by step. And we do that in this integrated development environment called PyCharm. So it's working away in the background. It's installing a whole bunch of things, so I'll have time for another swig of coffee. Now I'm doing this on the Windows platform, even though I personally prefer Apple. Because I think most of you are probably more comfortable using a Windows operating system. So therefore, we're doing it in your environment as opposed to my preferred one. And there we go. It's almost done. Now there are other ways we can use, so GitHub has something called Gitpod, which is an online development environment we can use as well if you felt like it. I want to manually reboot later because I want to continue with this, so finish. So next, what I want to do is I want to start PyCharm. There, that's the one I want. Because I'm running this in a virtual environment as well, it recognizes that I have the app on my Mac as well. So when we start with the first time, Community Edition, we can read through the legal terms. I confirm that I have read and accepted. Continue. Data sharing, not at the moment. You can decide if you want to send anonymous statistics to help JetBrains make their development environments better. I will at the moment just go for don't send. And the environment is starting up. Time for another swig of coffee. There we go. So this is the interface. We have our projects. We can customize as we make changes to some of the color themes. For example, I prefer Windows 10 Light. I know a lot of developers prefer dark for dark business, but I prefer nice and bright. Plugins that we can add. At the moment, there are a few there. We can install more if we want to. So plugins are just ways of expanding the features and functions of our development environment to support other programming languages or other features. And the good thing, and what I really love about PyCharm, which is one of the reasons why I suggest you use it as an IDE, is it has a great built-in training and development feature, which is really good. However, we want to go to projects. We want to get a new project. Now we can open an existing one if we have one saved. We can get one from a online. So this is from a content management system. So we can, in other words, get our code if we're working on the same application together with other developers. That can be stored on things like GitHub, for example. But we're just going to go new project. Now it has decided on the default. I'm happy with that. We don't have to worry with the details here, but essentially what happens is this: we can run Python when we write applications, either in a global mode or in a virtual environment. What does that mean? Well, a virtual environment means that for each application that we're creating, we have our own separate little environment. So if we make a mess of things, it only affects that environment, but also it means that we install additional packages and libraries in that environment, and it doesn't impact everything else. And that's actually quite good. And we have a choice of different types. Now, I prefer virtual environment. That's fine. It has already found that we have this interpreter, the one that we recently installed and downloaded. We could inherit. I don't want to do that. And I am quite happy with... now, what we could do, create a main Py welcome script. So in other words, just to help us get things along, we can click create. So we'll actually just add the relevant files so we can get started a little quicker. So it's creating the virtual environment. It's going to add all the relevant files in a second. little tip of the day. I will just close that down because I don't need that. Okay, it's still working away in the background. There we go. Now what it does is, you can ignore this message. I'll just do always download anyway. So what it's done is here, if you look at, we have the bar. So we can click on this to get the various. Now I know we're a bit sluggish at the moment. File, edit, view, navigate, code, refactor. So it does a whole number of things. Some of these things we're just not going to look at, but I'm just kind of going through these so you can see. So this is version control, for example, and we can link to a project in GitHub so we can work on applications together with other developers. And there are other types of repositories as well we can do this. So it's just kind of giving you an idea what's there. And this then is our main kind of project tab where we can have a look at our key files. So any additional Python files, generally we add them here. It has created kindly a main.py file in our environment. This is our programming window. So actually I'm going to just maximize this. And what we can see then is it has something here that we can actually run. And also down here we have version control, to do, problems, terminal, Python packages, and Python console. If I click on this later on, it will actually open up allow access. Yes. Okay. Now, so basically the Windows Defender did what it's supposed to do. I just wanted to open port so I can communicate with the environment. But here you can see then it opens up various windows that we can access when we are writing our programs, just to give us a few ideas about what's going on. At the moment, there's not much there, but I will show you what happens. Let's go back to Python console. So this is the window where we do most of our programming. And what we can do here is sample Python script. So if I right click here, I should, and it's actually they've added a breakpoint. We can choose run main. We won't do that. I'm going to copy and paste code that I have in another window. So just bear with me. Actually, sorry, I have to do this. PyCharm on my Mac. There we go. So I'm just going to copy and paste some code that I already have, the code that we're going to look at later on, just to show you just how these things work. So I have rock, paper, scissors. So I'm just going to go Control A, Control C, and then I'm going to go back to this environment, Control A, Control V. What we have then is I will remove that breakpoint by just clicking there. So breakpoints we'll look at later on, but essentially this is the code that we're going to walk through. So we can run it, run main, or we can just right click in here and choose run file in Python console. So I'm just going to go click run, and we can then see this running the application. So it's taking my code, translated so the computer understands. In this case, a game of rock, paper, scissors. I will play rock, and I won. Rock again. I won again. And then Q to quit. So basically, this is just how to set up a development environment before we start coding in it. And any changes we make, we can just go to File and then choose Save All if we want to, just to make sure that we save our files as we're programming. This is just going to quick overview to get the environment up and running before we actually start coding. So with that, I say thank you very much for taking the time to look at this, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye-bye.